Hola, our Performance Unlimited family. First recording of what we like to call Poo Talk.
Poo Talk.
Poo Talk 101. Here we go. We couldn't come up with a better name than Poo Talk, huh?
There is no better name.
Right? Poo. Maybe it's just because we like to say poo.
Hey, there's nothing better than and nothing more important than the quality of your poo.
How do I respond to that? So anyways, we are going to, as we mentioned to some of you guys, John and I are going to kind of have a conversation about some of the things that we've been talking about in the gym. You know, it's funny, last week I found myself listening to a conversation John had, and I said, what the heck, I want to be in on that thing. So we thought, what a great idea to have a conversation with each other about the things that we talk about on a daily basis, the conversations, the questions that people ask us that we feel like everyone should be a part about or should know about. But even more important, it's an opportunity for whether you're traveling, you can stay involved with what's going on in the gym, that we can update you on some of the things that are happening and will be happening here. So Poo Talk is exactly that. It's an opportunity for everyone to stay involved and for us to kind of hash things out and have those conversations that we feel are important and that you guys feel are important, because in the end, you're the ones asking us about a lot of these questions.
So let's be honest, Billy's got all the good ideas and he's the one that came up with this, but I think it definitely, what he said is resounding true. Only a few of you guys are really diving deep into the what's and the whys, but I think we get lost sometimes in not explaining that well enough to everybody, that this is a great way to communicate to the masses a little bit better and a little bit more depth, and hopefully even spawn on some even better, more in-depth conversations from this. So take this for what you want, put your own little twist on it, and let us know, A, do you like it, but B, is there any other questions that spawn from this conversation?
Feedback. I know not everyone gets the emails on the competition. I still don't know how that works, but not everyone does. But please give us feedback on what you guys think, because we're always trying to move and learn as we go. But kind of taking a side step from there, John, what is going on at the facility right now? I keep hearing this word co-op. What the heck does that mean to you and to us?
So you guys have probably already noticed Marco, probably even had a conversation, maybe even had him beg you for some sort of piece of material about the garden. So it is a poo garden. So we are growing some poo essentials out there for you to feast on at some point. I'll stop with the poo analogies here in a minute, but I just think
PU.
it's great.
You meant to say PU, not
right.
poo.
Right.
Yeah,
so nonetheless, the garden is the first piece of the co-op. The co-op is just our way of really strengthening relationship with you guys, the clients. And I think that no matter if you understand it, believe it, or realize it or not, A, this is all about you, but B, you guys are driving this ship in a lot of ways, meaning that if we can have a stronger relationship with your thoughts, what you like, don't like, your feedback, your ideals for what is good for you, that really allows us to be better in what we do well. So why not really get more intimate, create a way that we can have that avenue and conversation, and obviously have some resources and some value, like an organic garden that we will all take part in, we will all feast on in one way or the other, and that's just kind of the limit. We're going to dive deeper in that in another episode and maybe a little bit more of an isolated format, but great way for us to get to know you get to know each other, us to really all develop health and wellness for each other in a lot of different facets.
Yeah, when I think of, I can't help but think of REI whenever I hear the term co-op, right? And how great it is that, instantly you sign in, you are part of the community. I can remember getting the email the minute I became a member of REI, and it's, okay, now you have access to all these things, all these different coupons and different things. And we've been using the phrase quite a bit this week of intentional community. And I think that's, what we're trying to build is just a community of people that have ultimately the same mission and support each other. Because at the end of the day, we all rely on each other, whether we know it or not. I know I rely on every single client that comes in here for a variety of knowledge, stories, and advice. And I'm sure it's the same has happened with you as well, John. So I think it's really about just continuing to strengthen the family that we preach all the time. I think that's what's made us who we are, and I think that's one of our big value drivers is this idea that, okay, we are a family. Whether you come in at 8 a.m., 6 a.m., 12 o'clock, or once a month, it doesn't matter when, you're a part of this group and a part of what we're trying to do together. And, yes, what bonds us is this idea of healthy lifestyle and healthy choices, but at the end of the day, we're all here to kind of support each other and to guide each other through that whole process.
You've got value, you've got resources that can add value to somebody else. Let's share it, let's get involved. I know I want to be a part of it more often, and I know you guys do too.
Yeah, perfect. Well, kind of the main meat and potatoes of today, I guess you could say, was we've been talking a ton about and getting questions about this idea of, why are you telling us to slow down, right? Because I keep hearing hit, high intensity training. Why do I have to slow down? Because I've heard that burns the calories. I've heard that burns the fat. I've heard that gets the results that I want, right? Get in 30 minutes as fast as I can go, and then I get to leave, right? Efficiency. But you guys are telling me to slow down, right? You're telling me to jog, that I can't go as fast as I want to go, but you're giving me timed rounds where I have to go slow. Like, what? Low threshold versus high threshold, John. Give us kind of the gist of why are we telling everyone to slow down just a bit?
I think it's a great question. I think it's one more example of how we would differentiate from a lot of programs out there, from a lot of information out there. I know not a lot of people really write programs of how to slow down. I think that's definitely against the mill within the fitness community. But let's take a step back and look at just a small bit of science from an explanation standpoint of how this all works together. Because ultimately we want results. Ultimately we want to get closer to our goals. But let's look at the spectrum as a whole, as in how we get those results. A, by moving better at a higher quality. B, by creating a better, well-rounded understanding and definition of fitness. And C, continuing to keep ourselves as resistant as possible to injury. So with all three of those being said, how we actually do that, we have to make sure that we're not just focusing or isolating or dominating all of our work at one speed. And if I can throw a little science at you, let's not think about let's put low threshold, high threshold, slowing down, speeding up in a little bit different perspective. So when we say low threshold versus high threshold, think about that as slow twitch and fast twitch. I think all of us have heard of that and can recognize that in a lot of ways. Slow twitch muscle fibers that equal low threshold motor units. Those are going to be the muscles that make the actions that we have to endure with, ones that will think postural muscles, ones that have to activate and be active for a long period of time. On the opposite side.
Let me interject there quick, because I know for me, I'm sure, I'm kind of learning as we go through this whole thing, and you're full of stupid analogies, right? But to me, that, if I'm hearing you right, John, is kind of this idea of, I think of doing the dishes. I hate doing the dishes, right? We don't have to do them, but it's super easy. It doesn't take a lot of brain power for me to do the dishes. I can have a conversation with you. I can have a conversation. It doesn't take thought to think, okay, soap on sponge, go through that whole process. It's pretty easy to do. I mean, is that kind of what you're talking about? That it's not necessarily controlling our focus or our thought, but it's just kind of naturally happening?
Yeah, there does tend to be a certain conscious effort that is synonymous with those two different types of muscles and therefore actions. So yeah, something like that's mindless, that's remedial, that's repetitive, chronic, like washing the dishes, would more relate towards a low threshold or a slow twitch muscle fiber. On the other side, something like a max effort deadlift, a power clean, even a sprint, if we're looking at the opposing spectrum of a marathon versus a 100-meter sprint, that's going to be your difference between a low threshold, be it marathon, versus high threshold, be it sprint. Now, if we can understand that we have both in our bodies, and even every muscle group has both slow twitch and fast twitch portions to it, the real effectiveness or role of those muscles is the most important piece. If we are constantly training on one end of the spectrum, which we tend to in the fitness industry as today, we tend to just find ourselves in that high threshold, that fast twitch, that as hard as possible, as long as possible, explosive mentality, because, like Billy said, that is what's going to burn the most calories from a composite standpoint, that is also, if we chronically train in that side of things, a lot of things tend to go wrong. So within that, again, if we look at injury prevention, to be quite frank, we'll come back to the fitness aspect, but if we look at injury prevention, if our slow twitch muscle fibers aren't being utilized, we're not developing the skill set of how to utilize best and most often, we're finding ourselves in compromised positions, like always being in high threshold, or always being in a position like being seated. We know our muscles aren't working the way they were meant to, the way they were designed to. So you have, therefore, compromise. And we all know compromise equals, sooner or later, is going to equal injury. But what we don't think about is that compromise also equals inefficient training. And inefficient training is also going to correlate with calories burned. Is the equation of calories burned equal to my performance, in the sense that if I can work hard, but it's only a very short amount of time that I can work hard, am I going to burn the overall amount of calories that's going to be equal to my ability to tap into low threshold and go much longer? Does that sum it up okay?
Yeah, so and you kind of answer these for me is, you're not necessarily saying we never should train high threshold.
No, not at all.
There's a time and place for it, right? But I think if I'm hearing you right, when we think of low threshold type stuff, first thing that comes to mind that we do here all the time is like our rolling pattern.
Sure.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times, what the heck does this do? But I think it's things like that, those smaller things that really create almost an awareness of what's going on, allow us to get to the higher thresholds sooner, but also be more efficient at those higher threshold stuff that kind of resist injury. So if I'm hearing you right again, if I can become better within the lower threshold type stuff, that ultimately I can then become better at the higher threshold stuff, the quote unquote fun stuff. Absolutely. Down the road.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like it's a consistent and constant mix of both, right? Absolutely. The low to the high, the low to the high. Yep. But it's not necessarily, and not to poke at any other program, because everyone has their pros and does things well, but we can't and we won't, within our philosophy, bring people in high threshold, high intensity work, and keep them there for 60 minutes, high five them, kick them out the door, and say, we'll see you tomorrow. No. That's what we don't necessarily believe in.
Quickest way to break down getting you injured, and therefore sedentation, and therefore you're back to where you started, fat and lazy, right? So let's put another analogy on top of it. Let's pull Jim Davis out there from an investment world. I think every investment professional out there, if they're good, would tell you to some extent to diversify your portfolio, mm-hmm. right? That's the best way to get the best result. So as you mentioned, the way that we can make our high output better, and the way we can make our high energy efforts that much more effective, is to understand that we've got to diversify our efforts and really develop or tap into the low threshold to make our high threshold that much more effective. And let me go back to your analogy within the core. Everybody knows that when we have back pain, what's the doctor say, PT say, chiros say? Hey, your core is weak, okay? But if we constantly skip to core being a low threshold conglomeration of muscles, if we're constantly skipping the low threshold into high threshold, we're not developing the skill sets nor practicing that low threshold to increase our core capacity, to increase our core efficiency, so that our high intensity, therefore our movement, our performance, but also our sustainability without injury, is obviously present.
So, okay, John, so it's starting to make a little bit of sense to me. Imagine, okay, haven't been to the gym in a while. Everyone's telling me to go here, there, wherever. They say it's the best kick butt workout I've ever seen, but you're telling me maybe that's not the best thing for me. So tell me, what would be the one thing, the two things that I could do tomorrow when I come into Performance Unlimited, when I'm at home? What could be the couple things that I could do right now to start to build and become more efficient and better at this low threshold type stuff? How do I want to get to the fast stuff. I know I do, right? Yeah. So how do I get there quicker? How do I become better at the low threshold type stuff?
Yeah, so we'll go back to the diversification aspect, and everything that we do in here, be it flexibility, mobility, stability, strength, power, endurance, speed, whatever it is. Those are all skills. We're all listing skills, movement skills. So the key to developing a movement skill is practice, just like any other skill that we think of throughout our lives. So the one thing, two thing, three things that you can actually do is A, get an understanding of where you're unskilled. Okay, is it the flexibility and where in your body are you unflexible? Is it a stability and where are you unstable? Is it a mobility, which is a combination of the two, and where are we unmobile? We can obviously help you that from an assessment, but right off the bat, you probably have 2 or 3 areas that you know that you need work on. You've got to practice that skill. Flexibility is a skill, it's a low threshold skill. Mobility is a skill, it's a low threshold skill. The more you can dial into the quality of those movements, the more you're gonna get out of your high impact, high intensity movements.
And I think of, I know one thing we've been doing quite a bit recently is these scap circles where we're, poking and prodding. We're telling people, bring your shoulder to your ear, bring your shoulder back, bring your shoulder down, go ahead and reach out in front. Now try to do that the other way. And to me, that right away is an example of a low threshold type thing. We're not putting weight in your hands. We're not having you do it, but we're kind of creating an awareness. And at the end of the day, I think athletics and injury prevention is about this ability to have an awareness of your body in space. What exactly is going on? Are you able to create the feelings, the positions that you need to be successful?
No doubt.
And I think, a little bit of a cheesy plug, but why not come get a 30-minute assessment with one of us? We can assess that. If you don't know, find out. Let's kind of dive into that a little bit deeper. Sorry, one per talk here, one per talk, cheesy plug. But why not come in and figure that out? If you don't know, if you feel like you don't know, if you need flexibility, low level strength and isometric work, or you need mobility or stability, whatever it may be, why not kind of come find out?
No doubt. Not only do other programs not have the expertise within most of their trainers to be able to give you the ideas of where you need that work, but they don't give you the value of having that at your fingertips every month. There's not one membership, no matter what level you're on, that does not have a monthly reassessment, a 30-minute dialed-in session with one of us to be able to get anything out of the way that you want to, albeit low threshold, high threshold, where my weaknesses are, nutrition talk, psychology. You want to just tell me about how great the new dog is that you just got, whatever you want to do, let us know in that session. That is a value add that you guys are not taking advantage of. Let's hear from you.
Yeah, so to end with this, just a quick summary, because again, our goal, I don't know if we said this early, we want this to be short enough that you can listen to it on your way to the gym, on the way back home, or maybe if you're in the long lines at school, maybe enough that you can listen to it in those. But a quick summary here, and John, you add in if I'm not right here, but it sounds like we constantly battle and constantly train these low threshold, high threshold type things, type movements, right? They're a constant part of the programs. But we feel and we see that the high threshold is oftentimes emphasized because that's the fun stuff, that's the cool stuff, that's me jumping off with one leg, balancing myself, catching myself on a hand and kicking a soccer ball at the same time. That's the stuff that makes YouTube and Instagram. But we feel and we see that the low threshold, think core rolling, think sometimes some of our flexibility work, our mobility work that we're doing, our sitting on the wall with the legs up, that stuff gets underemphasized. But when in reality, that's the stuff that is the building blocks for the tall skyscraper that we ultimately want to build with which is our fitness, our longevity, our lifestyle, and our health. But that's oftentimes getting overlooked. So that maybe when we talk about slowing down, it's not so much I want to put these huge parameters on you because you're moving too fast. It's to say, listen, go through the step-by-step process, right? You don't learn calculus in a day. It's learn the geometry, learn the algebra, learn everything that kind of feeds into ultimately your ability to go through and do the calculus at the end of the day.
No doubt. I'll put it in one sentence. You want to live longer, live better, look better, feel better, be happier. Diversify your movement skills. That's all we're asking.
Awesome. Hey, thank you for listening to Poo Talk, number one. Coming at you hot again next week for sure. Again, we're trying to keep it short. We're trying to keep it simple and easy, but we do appreciate feedback. So please take a listen. We appreciate and value all your guys. Let us know. I mean, maybe you hate listening to our voices, which, sorry, not much we can do there, I guess. I don't know, we can work on that. But at the end of the day, we appreciate and value your feedback. So let us know what you want us to talk about. If there's anything else we can do for you guys, please let us know. Thank you.